Hello. Thanks for tuning in. Um, the last time I said we were going to kick off talking about marriage and money. And that's really where my heart is right now. and, um, I shared, to recap, I shared a little bit about when Bob and I first got married, what we brought to the table financially. One, we both had a lot of student loan debt. Uh, Not great. That was a terrible start because what that did was it set the tune to what cars we drove, what house we bought, because we each had a lot of financial debt from student loans. I went to a private Christian university. He went to a public university, and combined, when we got married, our student loan payment was $456 a month. In 1994, that was a lot of money. And that was to the tune, I think it was set to be paid back in 10 years. We actually ended up paying our student loans back a little bit earlier than that. But it was horrible. I've taught many students over the years. And, obviously we taught our own kids. Don't do that. Learn from our mistakes on that. And I also encourage young people, especially, and parents actually, of college age students, high school students, take a look at the Dave Ramsey documentary that came out. I don't know when it came out, maybe 2021, maybe 2020. And it's called Borrowed Future. And it shows the agony that these student loans bring on, and even how Sally Mae was designed, and when that all came to be. So when I first went away to college, to university, I my mom was also a student at that time, and she was a nursing student. So we were a single income family from my dad's job, and then here I was going to university, and mom was in nursing school. So I qualified for a grant. So you quickly learn the difference between grants and scholarships and loans. Grants and scholarships are fun and good, and you don't have to pay those back. Loans, you do. So, anywho, by the time by the time I finished, I had borrowed, because when I started Anderson University in fall of 1988, tuition for that year was like $7,000. Now, even though now that seems like a very small drop in the bucket, it was kind of expensive, still at that time. Um, and I did not financially prepare for college. I just knew I was going, which is really kind of a dumb way to do major life decisions. I since have learned the error of my ways. But I knew I was going to Anderson University in Anderson, Indiana, and I just thought, well, I'll figure it out as I go. I did, but there's better ways, right? Better ways. Um, and since then, there's all kinds of, I think, different types of investing that you can do when your kids are small, and it's helps with your taxes, and um, then it's money set aside for them when they are grown and ready to go to college. Um, at any rate, um, both my our girls have paid as they went. I helped, they helped, and we did it together. And so I didn't want them to have a burden of a student loan, and I don't want that for you or your family either. So to put that all in perspective, back to the money. So um, our professions that Bob and I were in, he was juvenile corrections at the time, I was education. Neither of those at the time were huge money makers. That's not the same as an accountant or an engineer or something of that nature. So, and it's not a shot against any profession. Wherever the Lord leads you, that's what you need to do. He'll provide. But what I'm saying is, whatever our paychecks were, well, he still had a year of college too left when we got married, or around that maybe. And I was substitute teaching, and then I started working part time at a correctional facility for incarcerated adults. Um, I was ready to do anything because we wanted to get married. And we had our student loans, like I said, was $456 a month. We had our rent, which was only $285 a month if we paid by the first. And I thought, well, we're paying by the first. If it was after the first, it was $315. So we just made that our due date every month was the first. Um, and and it was an okay little apartment. It really was. It was one bedroom, one bathroom, kitchen, little eating area, and a family room or living room. And how much did two people need, right? It was plenty. It was a cute little place. Um, and we did enjoy our time there. Probably would have stayed there a little longer, except you quickly learn, like, the man who lived below us, because we had an upstairs apartment, he also must have thought that was a great deal. And the problem was he was a chain smoker, and that smoke just kept billowing up, and I hated the smell. And the air conditioning did not work that well. And on a second story apartment, it was hot. Um, and that man that lived below us as well, he kept parking his big truck in one of the entrances. And so I would come home sometimes and be blocked. Anyway, there's pros and cons to apartment living, right? Uh, but we made it work, and then we bought our first house. And like I said, the amount, if we didn't have those student loans, we could have bought a different house, one in which we would have just stayed put in. Um, that's really something to consider. So my generation was one where you might have started small, and then you sold that and you bought a bigger house, and you sold that and maybe got a bigger house. Whereas, like, my parents have only lived in two houses, and my grandpa sold a lot. But like great grandparents, they'd buy a house when they got married, and that was it. And I kind of believe that there is some wisdom to that now, looking back, because if you've invested in a home that, you can grow a little bit in, maybe it's a little cramped, but, guys, the way the life cycle works, you're not going to need all that space after your big family days are over. Um, and not only that, when you've got your house paid off, say you are able to pay it off in 20 years. Well, if you're blessed to have a really long marriage, that's a lot of years that you have then with a house paid off. That's a lot of extra income that you can do a lot of other things with. So, really kind of, I don't know wherever you are, but just join in wherever you're at financially. It really is helpful if you can get out of the mindset of a payment mindset, right? So anyway, that's a little bit about where we started. And then, so our first house was indicative of what our income was and what our debt was. So we had a car payment, the loan payment, or the student loan payment, and then the house payment, then all your other regular utilities and, things like that. That quickly eats away. So I'll stop there with my personal story. I just want to start us off on a little bit of this money, the great mischief maker. I find it interesting that Jesus, who came to say so many important things and through whom the universe was made, spoke more about money than any other subject. Not only did he talk repeatedly of money, but most of his pronouncements included warnings about it. He had a dramatic encounter with a rich young ruler. He told disturbing parables about Lazarus and the rich man, and about the rich fool. He said, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." Matthew 6:21. And man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Matthew 4:4. And finally, he asked a question that has echoed down through the quarters of time. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? Matthew 16:26. 20 centuries later, we still have to deal with that eternal question. The intervening years have made it clear why Jesus gave such emphasis to the dangers of money. Men have lusted for it, killed for it, died for it, and gone to hell for it. Money has come between the best of friends and brought down the proud and mighty, and alas, it has torn millions of marriages limb from limb. Materialism and debt have devastated more families than perhaps any other factor, and believe me, it could destroy your marriage as well. Men and women tend to have different value systems, which precipitate arguments about money. My father, for example, was a hunter who thought nothing of using 3 boxes of shotgun shells in an afternoon for recreational shooting. Yet if my mother spent an equal amount of money on a useless potato peeler, he considered it wasteful. Never mind that she enjoyed shopping as much as he did hunting. They simply saw things differently. On a larger scale, this divergence can produce catastrophic arguments over how to allocate limited resources. So we're going to stop there today from the book. Remember, this is Love for a Lifetime, and it was by Dr. James Dobson. This particular copy was given to us at our wedding by one of my aunts and uncles. So anyway, money is one of the biggest reasons couples don't make it. They get divorced. And it's very important. So if young people can learn the value, the principles rather, of giving, saving, and spending. That's what Dave Ramsey coins, the give, save, spend. And also Larry Burkett. Bob and I actually, I forget when it was, but we'd been married, I don't know, a good chunk of time, probably 15 years. And we took Larry Burkett, a Larry Burkett course by Crown Financial. And a couple from our church offered it in their home, and we just did it for whatever the time amount was. And there was homework with it, and it was learning the money principles of the Bible. Very similar to Dave Ramsey's program. The idea is to give. If you live, like Dave Ramsey's quote is, live like no one else, so later you can live like no one else. And so you have to do things differently. You have to be okay with doing things differently. So maybe you don't spend $10 every day on a foo-foo coffee, and maybe you don't go out to lunch every single day with your friends at work or school. Maybe you do things differently. Maybe you go once a week and get a fun coffee. Maybe you get the small and not the large. Maybe you go out to eat with with your friends every other week on payday or whatever. You get to decide that. That's the fun part. So, anyway, I don't want to get too much ahead of myself, but lots of tools are out there, and Bob and I learned early on. It was well, it took us a while, like I said, but we knew we did not like being in debt because it was just ew. The borrower is slave to the lender. That's what we learn in Scripture, and we didn't like that. We wanted to have more freedom. And so, anyway, we'll pick up more the next time. I hope you have a great day. Think about what we've talked about today. Comment if you have learned, if you are learning, or if you want to learn more about this financial piece. Have a great day. That's my gift for you today.